Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how that I full case, and of course you can do this at your own risk. You can like the way I do it, dislike it, and if you want to leave a comment, that does help others. So if you're first time watching the video, you want to read the comments and see if you like what you see. You might even get better advice down there, who knows. If you can see, I started out at about, I'm going to say from the plug right here at about 150, 160 thousandths, and then it tapers outward. So I'm probably around 200, 180 thousandths, something like that. A lot of guys say that 200 between the plug and over is okay. I don't know. You guys use your own discretion on that. So that's how I do it. But anyway, and that's all done the way I'm showing you in the video. Talk to you a little bit later. Hi, and welcome back. We're going to today, I'm going to show you how that I full flow a case, and it's really not that hard to do. You can have a machine shop do it if you want, but it's probably something that you could probably do yourself if you're a little bit handy. Things to be aware of are that you're dealing with magnesium, and you don't want to get a spark on any magnesium, because it might all of a sudden be a fire. And they, it's just use some common sense. Don't use a grinder on something steel, here when you're got magnesium shavings everywhere. So what we want to do is, first of all, if you look here, when you put this on, what we do, I'll tell you what we do. I got a case already done here. Is we drill and tap this section here, and I bought a drill and tap on Amazon, and I think it needs to be a bottoming tap because it has to go down in the case pretty far, and it's like this one hits right here. So I'm going to take off a little bit of that, and I think I'm going to have to grind this down a little bit. Now again, if this is steel right here, I don't want to get any, bump my grinder against that guy while I'm playing around with this. So those are just little things to think about. So anyway, one of the things you need one of these type of fittings, and one that has, it doesn't, I don't know what this is called, but it doesn't have anything sticking out on it, and you might need to grind a little bit of the edge of it off to get it to go in the hole, because again, you're going to be hitting like this, and you can take a little bit off of there, but not too much. So we're going to do that. You'll need some steel plugs. I don't like to use, a lot of guys, when they plug this side off, they use a brass one. And if you use a brass one, a lot of times the magnesium in the brass, you just aren't getting that sucker to come back out. So, if you put a brass one in there with the little Allen on it like this, you might be a one-time deal, and if you don't get it in far enough in there, you might have to drill it out again. Kind of a pain. Better to get steel ones. So I buy these little steel plug sets, and again, one of these that's like this. And what this does, I know this one's got the 6mm. It's not supposed to fit like that. It's supposed to fit on this case. But obviously this one here it won't, because the case isn't shut all the way, so I won't use it as an example. So what you're doing is you're taking the oil, instead of going directly through the case over to here and over, we want to add a oil filter and a cooler. They have these from MP. They also have some online. I was looking at on eBay. They looked kind of cool, and they have these MP ones. If you notice, I got it tightened up but not touching. You don't want it rubbing on there, because if it's just that vibration from the fan, it's just going to wear a hole in there. So make sure it's not rubbing. Nice and close to it, but not rubbing. So you get one of these, and you have your cooler and a spin-on filter adapter. With mine, I'm using this stuff. I'll show you where links in Amazon for these type of things. This is 1,000-pound nylon wrapped There's stainless steel and nylon wrap stuff. This does 1,000 pounds of pressure. I think we're okay. And then we're using something called AN fittings. And AN fittings are nice because they stay on better. If you just use hose clamps on these, there is a potential of those hose clamps coming off, especially if you're not using high pressure clamps. If I use hose clamps, I usually will double clamp it. But the thing that's nice about using an AN fitting, if you need to take the engine out of the car, you just unscrew these here, high pressure fittings, and then it just comes off. So taking the engine out of the car is much easier if you have AN fittings set up on your engine. So really a good idea to run ANs. They are not cheap, but they're not really that expensive in comparison, especially if that line blows off and you lose $1,000, and it costs you thousands of dollars for engine parts to rebuild the engine. It's much better to use the AN fittings. So these kind of screw on to the hose, and they very rarely ever fail. I mean, I'm not going to say they never will, but everything has a possibility of failing. And then you can screw everything together with hose, make it nice and neat, clean. There's elbows. This little kit right here, this is 8 AN half-inch to half-inch pipe. That's what these are. This is half-inch pipe. And then you use 8 AN to 3/8, which is what's in here. So this is going to be 8 AN to 3/8. This is a 3/8 because you can't get a half-inch in there. And then you use an 8 AN end to 3/8 here, so 3/8 NTP national pipe thread. So anyway, that's what you get for this to make this work. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead, and one of the things we want to check is clearancing. And this is the difficult part because you really don't know exactly how far away it's going to be. Usually you have to modify this tin right here to get this thing to fit, but you've got to thread this thing down pretty far in order to get the threads to want to go in far enough for this to work. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull this plug right here in the case. And what this plug is if you kind of want to chase the theory, it goes, this is your outlet from your pump, it goes up here, and then it goes to here, and then down here, this one here is from your pressure relief piston. So you're not taking this plug out, you're taking this one out, which is the supply line that goes either to here, to the main supply line, or to the cooler. So all your oil normally goes through your cooler first, and as you build up pressure, the piston comes down, and then it supplies this line. And that's because it'll always keep your engine cool, even if you got low oil pressure. That's the theory behind that. But anyway, you want to check your clearance here. And the risk is that if you make this too tall, that it's going to hit your pulley, and that's not going to be very fun. So a lot of the machine shops will machine this down a little bit. I don't know exactly how far, but in order to do that at home, you're going to have to remove this plug first. So let's do that and get the plug out of there. Well, if you can see in here, the hole is quite a bit smaller, so I usually drill a little bit larger because we want to get nice oil flow through there. We will have a little bit of a restriction right here where it goes through this. And those things always things I'm thinking about, but if I drill that through, then I'm not going to have enough threads on this side. Definitely need this whole thing removed because if you hit a grinder on this thing, it's going to make sparks. Well, if you can see in here, the hole is quite a bit smaller, so I usually drill a little bit larger because we want to get nice oil flow through there. We will have a little bit of a restriction right here where it goes through this. And those things always things I'm thinking about, but if I drill that through, then I'm not going to have enough threads on this side. So it's probably going to have to just work that way. But even if it has a smaller section like this that it goes through, it'll pressure right here, but it'll flow through this bigger line pretty darn easy. So it's just one little area, and it's like having sprinklers in the front. You know, you have a 3/4 inch water main, and you have 1/2 inch or 1.5 inch line all the way to the back of your property, and it still has good pressure in the back. That's kind of the theory here, is it goes through that, and then the resistance is very low when it goes through that 1/2 inch line once you get past this 3/8, and that keeps the flow and pressures really good on your system. So it works still. Got the little man over here helping me out. But anyway, one quick thing I just did, I'm going to show you. I don't know if it focuses in for this, but if you saw there was a heavy stair step in there, decided to taper that. And what I did is kind of make a venturi, so it kind of goes from big to small. And then I took out of here, if you look down in there, they just kind of drill it, and I just kind of got a little flow. I'll show you the tools I used. They have these nice little carbide sets on Amazon. I'll put a link in there for you. And for this, I just used my drill. I didn't want to put it all, it's a pain in the butt to put it all on the little other thing, the die grinder. But yeah, I just used this little set, got in there really deep and cleaned it up real nice. It took off about 1/8 of an inch, or a 1/16, well, probably 1/8 with the blade width. And then the same thing here. I took a little bit, it's not much, a little piece off of that, so that you don't want to take too much, because you can see where the hole is drilled through the center of that. And if you go too far over, this one can get drilled, this one's drilled this way, and you know, what if they missed or something went too far? You don't want that. So anyway, should be good on that. Okay, drill and tap set. I think I'll put this in the description for you guys. Pretty cheap on Amazon. It's got to be the proper size drill. If you use the wrong one, you can cause a lot more problems. Especially when you got magnesium case, it's not easy to tap, so you got to make sure you have the right one. Hey guys, there's a couple things I maybe should have said something earlier, but let me just tell you. Okay, so if you see here, the old books say 200 thousandths between the plug and where you ground off, somewhere around there. I mean, use your own judgment on that. I go a little bit closer than that, and it shouldn't be a problem. It's just, you know, if you're too close to that gallery or galley, it could crack through. So it probably won't, but anyway. But you just don't want to be too close to that. So I've got more than an eighth of an inch. I don't think I'm at 150 thousandths. So that's plenty. Eighth of an inch I think is more than enough. This is my opinion. You can do it however you want. But anyway, so the reason I deck this down a little bit, so you can do whatever you want on this. A lot of guys don't deck it. Is now, if you're gonna just put a plug in, like if you're just doing this for future, I always use these steel plugs. I mean, God, so many guys use the brass ones or whatever. And if you use the brass ones, you know, this one, if I were going to do this, I would put a lot of Teflon tape on this, okay? But try and not leave any hanging over the edge so that it ends up in your oil galley or gallery. The reason I deck it a little bit so I get a little more clearance here, so that the tin, so that I don't want my pulley to hit it. That's the main thing I'm always worried about. Getting the whole engine all built, and the pulley hits it, and then you're like, oh, what do I do now? You know, so the machine shops, when I get them, they're slightly decked like this. This is very little I took off of here, okay? So if you'll see here, here's the piece. I took maybe not even an eighth of an inch off of that, just a little bit. And every case is different. Some of the later model cases have different stuff on them, and you can't do it because you got a plug like this. You don't want to hit that plug. So anyway, that's the reason why I do that. And then I always tap them pretty far down in, because what I want to do is I'm going to tap it a little bit and then take it out and then run this guy in. Now I kind of run it in. I got it to a point where I think I like it. So I'm going to go like one more turn and see how much further down I got it to where almost all the threads are in. And if I needed to bring it back, I could put a little Teflon tape on there, bring it back out a little bit further. Again, if I use Teflon tape, I'm going to make sure that there's none of it getting inside there. And then before I do that, I'm going to clean it all out. I know, like the Easy Jeezy guy, he puts air pressure on here and has it blowing this one direction, and I don't think you need to do that. I mean, machine shops don't do that. So anyway, last one I think I had done at the machine shop. When I'm there, if I had the case down there, sometimes I'll just have them do it. But I don't know, machine work is so expensive now. Don't know if I do that. So anyway, this looks like it's going to be tight. Again, do this at your own risk. You got to use your own discretion and figure out what you want to do. Well, it gets nice and tight right here, and that's where I kind of like it, going down at maybe a little bit of an angle, so that, or you can use the AR, or you can put your AN fitting that's going to angle down a little bit and go straight out, whatever you feel comfortable with. But anyway, so my AN fitting is going to fit right here, and that's kind of where I was. I take it out, put it in, take it out, and add a little bit more thread until it feels nice and tight where I want it to be, but not so tight that I actually am worried about cracking the case. So it's kind of a little finessing going on there. So that's drilled in there past and threaded past that thing a little bit, because again, if I was going to use this, if I was just going to put a plug in here, I probably wouldn't do that. I was just going to plug this, and if I was going to plug this one now, what I would do is Teflon tape that thing up really good, put a lot of Teflon tape on it, and just run it until about right. Look through the hole, make sure there's plenty of passage there, and run it into just those, so you can see how far down it goes. Measure that. Make sure that the bolt doesn't go past the opening, but it would the way I have it right now, because I want it as far down as possible to clear the tin and the pulley not rub. So anyway, this is how I do it. You guys can do it however you want. So if you can see, this galley here goes down, it goes straight through and butts into this. So the meat needs to be down here up on the top edge. You're probably okay taking a little bit off of that, so you know. And that's usually where it ends up, because if you see, this hole is slightly above this one. So I just make it to where I just have to shave off some of that. That's what I did the last ones, and everything was fine. I haven't had any problems with them. How they come out of the machine shop, just like that. Anyway, next thing we had to do is do the pump. So we'll do the pump, okay? And if you're using an aluminum case, and this is where you use discretion, some guys will put a plug in this one too. So if you want to put an extra plug in there, you can, or you can just do the pump. If it's a mag case, most of the time, if it was really nice and tight, this one looks like it was like super tight and had no issues. Okay, so the pump fits really tight in there. If it fits really tight, it shouldn't leak out of here. But on some of the aluminum cases, a lot of times they're kind of not too loose, but a little tiny bit loose, and people say that you can get a low pressure idle. I don't think we've had that problem from just doing the mag cases, but on the aluminum cases, I'll do both on the aluminum. So just so you know, that's the way I do it. So like if you have the aluminum case, it's already almost any of the aluminum cases. The stock aluminum cases are not drilled, I don't think. Okay, for full flow, the stock ones. But if you get like a bubble top, it's going to be drilled for this already, and I'll plug those ones. I'll plug the back side of them, plug both sides. I'll plug the pump and the other. Okay, so this one here, if you look here, it has a larger hole down here. Now, if you got some of your older pumps, some of the 40 horse ones, stuff like that, they're going to have, if you're using a 21, it's going to have sometimes the holes are the same size. So you just match it up, put it right here. Obviously this one here, it's smaller on this one, is the outlet. This one's the inlet, because you can see it matches up. If you flip it over, it doesn't line up, if you notice. Well, it kind of does. But anyway, the outlet's always the one smaller, typically, on your 26s. So the smaller one is where we're going to put the plug. And we're going to go ahead and tap that one for the plug, and that's it. All right, guys, so I got this one here tapped, and then I'll do, again, the same way I do the other one. I'll put this in, thread this in here, and if you can see, when I thread it in, it kind of wants to stop right here. This is why I like to use a steel plug. Okay, because it stops right there and it's sticking way out. What some guys will do is they'll use a brass one, and then you can't get it back out. That's why I always use steel on these. If I can get it back out, now I can thread this a little bit deeper and get it to the right place, and I'll just go with that. So that's why I use the steel one. The problems when you use the brass, okay, if you grind it off, okay, now if you kiss that grinder along this edge right here, you better put both plugs in, because what's going to happen, this is probably where guys are saying that they have an issue, is if you take any metal off of this, and the other side of the case is going to leak in. Okay, so that's when you got to plug both sides. I mean, if you just want to be safe, you can plug both ends of it and be done. That's what a lot of guys do. I mean, that's why I'm saying, just up to you on that. Back in the old days, we always just plugged the pump, and that was it. All right, so that's what I ended up with there. It's countersunk. I just need to take a file and carefully file down the burrs, but not this edge here where my thumb is. You don't want to make sure that is tight as a drum right there. All right, as an insurance policy, if you want to do the other side, you're welcome to do so. I think we're good on this one. I got it. I did not kiss the file along that edge because this will have pressure here, but mine's threaded so deeply in here, if you look inside, that it is almost covering that entire hole, almost covering this one when I get in there. Well, it's about halfway through it. So yeah, I'm gonna blow all this out really good. Blow it from above or from here, and blow it so it comes out at you. Don't want to blow down in there because it's just going to push the shavings, because you've got right here this and you've got right here this. Okay, that piston, if you're pushing stuff, you know, this way, it's going to get into this one and it's going to be impossible to get out of there. So what you want to do, if you really want to be extra careful, you can take the slide hammer, pull this plug out here, and pull this plug out here. Then you can blow through that whole area and blow everything out. Typically, if you know, you should always check all these things before you put the engine together. And you know, I do a lot of stuff prep before I even start doing an engine build. The engine build is just like putting it all together, right? It's all the stuff you do beforehand that makes the difference. Getting all the shavings out of the case. So what I'll do on this is I'm going to blow this direction. And what it does, okay, remember your case oil flow goes from here, and this little one here goes through right to here and goes down. So you're going to blow backwards. So if I blow through this hole right here or this one up here, that's going to blow the shavings back at me. It's also going to blow them down through here, but some of them possibly could end up in here. So if you're really worried about it, take those two plugs out, clean that out. The other thing, what you want to do, what I always do, is I'll use liquid to push everything out. Hydraulic moves the shavings out a lot better. So I'll spray a bunch of brake cleaner inside of here, put on my goggles, put on these safety glasses, and blow everything and use the liquid to help push it out once I've blown it all with air. So I'll blow it all out with air once, and then I'll use the safety glasses and liquid to push the rest of it out, and usually that takes care of it all. It'll get out of there. Same way I do the crankshaft before I put it together. I pull all the plugs out of it, I'll blow it with brake cleaner and air, and that hydraulically removes the shavings. Does a better job than if you just use air, because a lot of times the air will just kind of stick to things and it won't come off. So go through here and clean this up really good. You can't spend too much time cleaning. Again, a lot of guys will get freaked out, say, oh my God, I got metal everywhere. Yeah, dude, you take it to a machine shop, have them open up the case or something, there's metal everywhere. So you have to do all this cleanup and make sure it's all clean. So anyway, I think that covers the case mod. Again, if you wanted to do the other one, so if you wanted to plug the other side, all you would do is the same process. Use this one here. Usually you don't need to drill it. It's the right size already, unless you have a 40 horse case. The 40 horse case is going to be smaller, so you have to open that one up with a drill for the proper size for the tap. Tap it out. You know, tap it out, put the plug in a little bit. That's why, again, I'm going to use the metal ones, the steel. I can put them in and take them back out a few times. If you do that with the brass, you're going to get it in there once and it's going to seize up and you can't get it back out. And so really, and then usually what happens, you just take a grinder and kind of finish it off, you know, leave it in place. So I don't like to do that on the magnesium, you know, especially this side. So anyway, I put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out a few times until it's deep enough where it's recessed like this is, and then we're good to go. So if you want to do both ends, that's up to you. I don't know if I'm going to do it on this one. I think this case is pretty tight. I don't think we'll have any issues with leakage. Again, the leakage usually is because you have an aluminum case. The machining on the aluminum cases, is a little loose on the pump side, I'm going to say. The ones I've seen are just slightly loose, and you're going to get a little bit of oil pressure loss there, which is a drag. If they're really, really loose, you put the pump in and check it. If it's really, really loose, then what you want to do is take the pump down and have them cut an O-ring groove in it right here where my finger is. Go all the way around with an O-ring. They cut a groove in it in the pump, and then you put an O-ring on the pump and put the pump in with the O-ring. And what that does, with it full flowed, if it's not full flowed, you could have leakage between this one and this one. Okay, you'll have pressure loss from that because you'll be sucking air right here, right? So, well, not really, because what'll happen is it'll all fill up with oil eventually. Okay, and then it'll suck the oil, recirculate it here, but you have a little bit of pressure loss still from it because it'll go back to feed back into the pump. But if you do the full flow with the O-ring, you're good to go as well. So if you have a case that's really worn here, I've seen them before, but it's not very common. If you have a case that's really worn there from the pump being loose, I don't know how it happens, but it does sometimes. And if you have that issue and your pump doesn't fit really tight, then you won't want to consider O-ringing the pump. And then that usually takes care of it, especially when you full flow it. Because remember, when you full flow it, that's only going to be suction. There's only going to be suction here, and it's not going to suck anywhere. But if it leaks around there, I don't know if you kind of get what I'm saying. Anyway, it makes sense. Anyway, that's it for this, guys. Just be careful. If you're going to do your own case, be careful not to cut too far on this. You know, a lot of guys do it by hand. I really don't find that there's enough material there that I don't worry about it really. So anyway, I do them with a cutoff wheel. You know, it's up to you. If you bought your case, don't come to me crying. All you got to do is, if you do, you can easily get a TIG welder here and TIG weld it up, but you know, that's going to cost you money. It's going to be way more expensive than if you took it to the machine shop and had them do that. So anyway, it's not hard. I'll talk to you in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe.